And we're live. How you doing, man?
Good. Just fucking spilled coffee all over myself. Good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's Halloween where I'm at. I don't. What's the time difference between you and me again? It's like what 13 hours or
No,
something for Australia.
we are 12 hours. I'm 12 hours ahead of you, so I am in the future. This is Monday morning for me.
You're in the future. Can you tell me what the winning lotto ticket is?
Sorry.
You're in the future now. Can you tell me what the winning lotto ticket is?
Oh yeah, no, I can't. I don't have that those capabilities. I think lottery's antichrist, sir. I don't touch those things.
Lottery, man. I keep finding all this like antichrist. I was told the lottery and Pepsi are the antichrist now, and I'm like, stop taking things from me. I can't. I like
It's
Pepsi.
true.
I enjoy it.
It's true. I mean, Coke's antichrist. Coke's like double antichrist because like
Yeah. It's like
Coke is sitting on the right hand side of Satan for Christ's sake. So
what
you know,
soda can I drink and still be awesome? That's what I need to know. Is it Mountain Dew?
that's a good question. I have no idea. You probably have to go with something more like probably have to go in the Schweppes line. I think you're basically down to tonic at this point.
Hmm. Okay, well, Jason, you are the host of the 2-Bit podcast, correct?
I am one of the two hosts of the 2-Bit podcast. Yeah, it's
That's right.
it's
So I've
up
listened to
until
it
now.
a few times. I've listened to it not a lot. But I've listened to it a few times. I
That's okay.
enjoy it.
Most people have only listened to us a few times, so it's okay.
Well,
we're growing though. We're growing.
That's good. That's good. Let's get into it. Let's kind of go over your ideological history. So, like, where did you start? Where did you end up? Where are you currently? Let's kind of just go through that.
So where did I start? Ideologically, I was always basically a classic liberal. I was a classic liberal. I was born and raised in Canada, born and raised in Montreal, Canada, which is sort of the most socialist province in all of Canada, as far as I can tell, up until recent. Yeah, basically until now. It's also a politically charged province because of the separation issues and the French language culture issues. So I think a lot of you see a lot of YouTubers out of Montreal. Like it's people are just sort of more politically aware, I think, a little bit than the rest of Canada. So I grew up through that, but I was basically just a classic liberal, and then around 2014 is when I started seeing that Church of Woke stuff. And one of my early podcasts with a friend who I'm no longer friends with, I had asked her, because she was in university, I was like, so what's going on? What's going on in universities? And we're seeing these things. She's like, it's not a big deal. I'm like, kind of looks like a big deal. I don't know. It's like seeing people freaking out and yell at their teachers in Harvard and stuff like that. I'm like, God, that looks kind of bad. And as I became more and more aware of things, I just became more and more disenfranchised with my side, I guess. I mean, and the fact that I'm a classic liberal, I was never, I was never progressive. I've been an anti-communist since I was 14. Like, I remember early on in the 90s going to some more anarchist bookstores and that kind of thing, and encountering people from the Black Bloc and going, well, that's bullshit. I don't want that. I've been an atheist since I was 12. I was an atheist and basically an anti-theist. I was, very big time into the new atheist movement until they became atheism plus. And it was right around that time. So it was around 2014, 2015, that I started looking at my group of people, the people on my side, and going, I don't like where this is going. The tactics being used are upsetting at best. Like at least they're kind of upsetting and unnerving. At worst, I see where this is going, and this seems to be like neo-communism. This is like neo-Marxism, and I don't want anything to do with that. And then, of course, that's when around that time, everyone on social media, if you mentioned that you just you didn't like Hillary Clinton, you got branded, card-carrying capitalist fascist. You're like, whoa, I voted for Justin Trudeau. Like, what the hell are you talking about? And like, no, like you question abortion for a second. Like, well, hang on, we shouldn't be using abortion as birth control. So
Give me 1 moment, real quick. I'm having some
yeah.
sound quality here. I can't seem to hear you. You're cutting in and out a lot. Like I lost the entire last sentence. Let me see if it's on my end. I think it might be. I think it's my headphones that are cutting in and out, not your sound.
Oh, maybe.
So let me just switch my speaker to. Okay. Let's mute my. Yeah, sorry about this, everybody. My headphones are slowly not working. I wear them to the gym, and they've kind of just got waterlogged. Now they don't want to work anymore. Okay, go ahead and say something real quick, so I can hear you.
La 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 la.
There we go. I think we're good. Okay, so you were saying you were labeled a racist on Facebook or something. What was because you voted for? What was it?
Yeah, well, I think everyone at that time, if you started to question the narrative, if you started to become, if you weren't on board with every single last thing they were saying from the left, I remember people telling me, you have to pick sides. You're gonna have to pick a side. Like I don't really want to pick a side. First of all, and also like both sides are bullshit. I don't agree with any of this. Now, and so through all of this, I've never really been. I never really was a libertarian or a anarchist. I had read Anatomy of the State back in the '90s, and I was aware of Hoppe and a few other people, but I really felt politically homeless and culturally homeless to a large degree. And that's when I started listening to more Jordan Peterson. And from Jordan Peterson, I kind of got led in a weird way into more religious kind of thinking, which was weird for me because I was, like I said, devout atheist for a very long time. But I became at least more psychologically open to the idea of some sort of religion, something being able to be that had some place in the world.
Yeah.
And then from there I got into Yarvin, and then from there I started looking into Vin Armani or Cyprian and a few other people. And this was all around 2000, leading up to 2019, where I fell off a bar that I was working at, hanging up Christmas presents, and almost sliced my thumb off by putting my hand through a back bar and through a few bottles. So that took me out. That was early December of 2019. And as I was getting my hand back together, COVID hit, and my wife was pregnant, and we had our daughter in July, and we went into second lockdown, in October in Montreal, and I just started having what I thought was emotional breakdowns. Like I just would start crying at weird moments. Like I was listening to like Rainbow Connection, and I was like, and just couldn't keep my shit together, and it was in one of those moments where I just felt at my most humble. I felt humbled, where like my whole life, nothing had been really prepared me for this moment of not knowing what the next thing to do. I've been working in restaurants for 25 years, in bars. I had that skill set. Like I could always, you could throw me into any kind of catering with that, and I'd be fine. I could always make money. I always knew what I could always make moves. And suddenly I didn't have any moves. I was like, I have no moves. I have no moves. And in that moment, that really big humble moment, I felt that God's kind of spoke to me through me and told me to bear witness and to testify. And that kind of just got me out of that moment. And I felt a tremendous amount of shame that I wasn't really prepared for. And then from that moment on, I was like, okay, we're moving into orthodoxy now. Like and I just kind of plugged into that. Cause I mean, that whole, what I would consider what I'm basically calling a religious experience, because I don't have any other way of conceptualizing it. Yeah, it shook me to my core.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, so I was wrong. We have to admit I'm wrong and move forward. And that's what we've been doing. So with the podcast, Mark and I, this whole first year has been us just kind of figuring out what the concept of this thing's going to be. And the last episode we just talked. By the end of it, we're talking about building a ministry of some sort, either conceptually or practically. And basically, what that comes down to is sort of in that post-libertarian kind of sensibility, we're looking to do more of a post-secular kind of mentality, and help build some sort of ministry of praxis. So looking at the church and looking at religion and finding ways to practically produce works for people to plug into, and to they will know you by your works. They will be the fruit of our trees that are sustaining. So that's kind of what we're looking to do.
And it's definitely something to that. Like what you're saying reminded me of the story. I can't remember his name. What's the guy? I need to write it down. There was a Catholic priest, and the church was going to send him somewhere. When we got out of seminary school, we were going to send him somewhere, and he said, "I'll go on the condition he promised never to send me anywhere else. I want to stay in one location forever," which doesn't normally happen. But he built a community. He got involved. He basically elevated the entire place because he built roots. He laid down roots in that one place, which is, I think, something that starts to get back to is the guys. They rotate every 10 to 12 years. They rotate people, which is fine. I get that, but at the same time, having one guy be there consistently, laying down roots and building something, is way more valuable. I think, especially in today's day and age with everything going on, consistency would be much more practical and important to people than rotations every 10 years.
Yeah. I think it's objectives too. One thing I think that the last 2 years have really kind of shown us, especially for people who are doing alternative media, like we're on the fringes of whatever it is that in order to operate, the one thing we have to kind of moderate is our own expectations, not just because of what we're capable of getting, but also what's beneficial for us to get. Like getting 10 million eyes on us is maybe not the best thing in the world. Maybe getting 1,000 eyes or 10,000 or whatever the number is of dedicated people who are in on it and go, yeah, you know what? We are not just interested in what you're saying, but we're interested in acting out what we're actually interested in producing deeds, and do it in a mindful manner so that it doesn't. You're not attracting flies. You don't want to attract the mosquitoes and and get stung by them, because I think that's what we've seen. What's happened in social media over the last, let's say, decade, increasingly so, is that you get your dedicated followers, you get your dedicated people who are a good fan base, let's say, and then you get everyone else, and everyone else, it can be varying degrees of bullshit or bad news for you, and you don't want people starting riots in your name. You're like, that's not what I said. That
there was
nothing.
When I first started listening to Dave Smith was right around January, and he was talking about January 6th, and he said, "I better not see no fucking part of the problem T-shirt on the crowd," which is finally funny, but absolutely you do not want that. You don't want your name attributed, because you don't want it anymore.
Well, this is it, and look, and the powers that be will change up the situation no matter what. Like, when the former director of the CIA, or was it CIA or FBI, was mentioned that mentioned libertarians in a list of domestic terrorism, terms.
With my AK,
like that's like, and I remember when a few other things happened on Twitter. When was it when Jack tweeted out about the anatomy of the state? My first response was like, it's about to get dangerous to be a libertarian on Twitter, folks. And everyone's like, nah, what are you talking about? It's amazing. It's great. I'm like, no. Wait. Because you're not in control of what happens next. Now, are you? Someone else is now controlling that narrative. And as long as you are, as long as you're part of that narrative, you get screwed. So
we do need to, and this was saying the thing is, people still want to like follow the people who construct the narrative are not in as much power as they used to be. Obviously, the corporate media is not in power. We don't need to play by that game anymore. Like it used to be, if you wanted to get on these major platforms and actually spread a message, you had to, play the game. Right now, you don't have to play any games. You can just do it yourself, and that is people people say they know that, but they don't act that out. They claim, yeah, we live in the day of the internet. I don't have to go on mainstream media anymore. It's like, okay, act it out. You don't act that out though. The people you're going to reach through the mainstream media aren't necessarily the ones you want to reach anyway. I
Yeah,
don't think
I
the
mean,
people who watch CNN are of value.
no, absolutely not.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been there's we're living with family right now, so I'm being exposed to more mainstream news now than I have in the last like few years, and it's brutal. Like I've actually watched about a continued half hour of like the CNN equivalent here in Australia, and it's amazing. Like knowing that, and it's amazing how they just repeat the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and that's that's why I've said to someone else about this. It's like that's what we're up against, right? Like we're trying to be innovative and interesting, whereas they're okay with just saying the exact same thing, the exact same piece of information, slightly differently, 500 times in a row,
Yeah,
and
the
that's what they
24-hour
do.
news cycle. It was a huge.
Yeah,
It's the idea like I remember I stayed with my grandpa in Georgia, and we made a cabin, so we watched Fox News all day long. We watched Fox News from 8 to about, I think it was like 7, because then we switched it to Rawhide and Have Gun Will Travel and back to Better Wiley.
yeah,
And that was
yeah,
a whole
buddy.
day. And
Wow.
yeah, it was. I used to love it, because I mean, my first book I ever bought was like Sean Hannity Deliver Us from Evil.
Jesus.
Yeah, I have a signed copy of a Sean Hannity book. It's right next to my Scott Holton book, which I'm going to get. I need
Jesus.
to get Scott to sign it so I can put them side by side. But the amount of times I heard the Fast and Furious scandal when I was about to say with my grandpa, like every 5 minutes it was the same story. The people were all robots saying the exact same take. You were lucky when somebody like does the Napolitano hopped on said something a little different, and everyone else was just like, this is bad. We get it. I don't need to hear it 12 times in an hour.
Yeah, I mean, this is what kills me. It's like Tucker Carlson is like 1 degree more different than all the rest, and they're acting as if Tucker Carlson is the antichrist on mainstream media, or like or this genius, depending on whatever side you're on. And I'm like, guys, he's okay. He's exactly the same as all those other people, but he's just over here, like it's 1.5 steps over. Just he talked to Curtis Yarvin, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!"
Well, I was gonna say, like,
it's fine.
I think
okay.
his news show is so much more controlled by corporate interests. When his Fox Network show, his Fox Nation, the app, that's more him.
Oh yeah.
I think that one's actually interesting. He's also doing that November 1st tomorrow. He puts out a documentary about Jan 6 and the government coming after conservatives, labeling them the new domestic terrorists. And so it's like, I think if Tucker would leave the mainstream media, I think he'd be really interesting and really worth paying attention to. But as long as he's tied down to it, I think he's doing the best he can where he's at, which has value. But I think if he was to leave, he'd be way more interesting. But I don't know if that's better for him, because what he's doing now is speaking truth to people who don't normally hear it. And so I don't know what he'd be more valuable at, staying where he's at, being middling, or really good to a select few.
I don't know. That's the Megyn Kelly question, right? I haven't really watched your new podcast, so I have no idea. But yeah, is there a that's an interesting point, because you have to think about bridging. And one of the things I say about our podcast and what I think post secularism can be is trying to find bridges to bring people from a secular or atheistic viewpoint over to, I wouldn't even call it a religious standpoint, but to get into a space that allows for religious experiences to be at least possible. So the question would be: does the Megyn Kellys and the Tucker Carlsons of the world, by the nature of them being relatively non-confrontational and difficult even for the left to really put too much stink on, because it's like, look, Megyn Kelly might be a cold hard-headed bitch, but like, she's not evil. Like there's nothing. Yeah, exactly. Like there's very little you can really paint on her. And the same with Tucker Carlson. It's like, if he's not out there, he's not out there having massive affairs or beating up black people. I don't know what I don't know what the thing would be, right? But like, it's just that's not Tucker.
He
So
gave two candies to white kids and one candy to black kids on Halloween night. Ooh.
God damn it!
They
That
might say that,
bastard.
which would be absolutely hilarious. Oh, I hope to God someone does that.
That bastard.
That'd be,
That bastard.
I would love nothing more than the people like it's like paparazzi stalk someone on Halloween and judge them by how much candy they give out based on races. We need affirmative action candy laws for Halloween.
He only gave out white chocolate candies to the POCs. And it's like, oh damn it, man. Colonialism. Colonialism on a pagan holiday. Ah,
that's so bad. No, speaking of secularism, I can never say that word. Secularism. Have you heard of Scott Hahn? He's a Catholic theologian. Have you heard of him at all?
No, I haven't. I don't really and no offense, I don't really I don't pay much attention to Roman Catholics.
That's completely fair. I don't blame anybody because right now it's all my church. The church is going through something right now, and it's.
Yeah, you think just a little bit?
Look, I converted this year. I converted Catholicism this year, and I love it because I think it's true. But I think like any institution, you have people in the institution are always going to be operating at different levels, and that's not necessarily the best thing. But Scott Hahn, he's this fantastic theologian. He wrote a book. I can't see it now, but it's called "How the Bible Became a Secular Book," and he goes through the history of how the Bible got brought into college and institutions, colleges, and they tried to read it reason alone outside of spirits or absent of the spirits. And this reader has a history book, and they basically secularized the entire Bible, and that led to all these terrible Bible interpretations we have today. It's just a history of biblical interpretations through colleges, and it's a fantastic book.
Cool. I'll check it out. Yeah, I think some of the biggest problems with religion, with Christianity in general, is one, it's gotten watered down, and two, that a lot of pastors, and certainly I think the Catholic Church in general, if we went to the biggest institution, has a lot of explaining to do. It's just because I had a religious experience and went from anti-theist to Orthodox Christian essentially overnight. It doesn't mean that I forget all my complaints about the church from before, and that I think a lot of those were still valid.
Yeah.
Just say like, yeah, sorry, let me just finish that. Like, you go through the scandals, but the most obvious thing is that they're preaching empty words and telling people to come up and sing the songs and do and say the prayers, but there is no praxis to it. There is no actionability to it. And then when you actually see the actions of the church in when it comes down to child rape and and mass murder and all the rest of it, you're like, okay, guys, so
Yeah, the biggest problem the church never really engaged with the new atheists. And the new atheists offered, I think, some of them offered fair criticisms that they could have been met. And Vatican II watered down so much of the church teachings and normalized it for the masses. And I think that was a mistake. The church would call you to be better. It should meet you where you're at, but call you to be better. You shouldn't water down church teaching to make it amenable to people. You should bring them to your level, which is what the church did not do. But people like Mr. Barron, who are actually trying, there are a lot of Catholic priests and YouTubers and podcasters who are trying to do that. They're trying to elevate things. And I think that's going to really change things. I think going forward, the church is going to be in a lot better place because the really good people are going to be elevated because of the internet. But right now, the church has so many sayings like, I'm going to quote my favorite Catholic, Andrew Napolitano, who told the story of how he had to do a 15 rosary. What's it called? He went to confess it, and his penance was 15 rosaries because he prayed that the Pope would go straight to heaven when he died. He also prayed he died tonight, but
yeah,
it's a great story. But yeah, the Pope needs to. He's a Jesuit. That's what I expect from Jesuits, but there needs to be a new Pope. I mean, this Pope is really dragging everything down.
Okay, do you honestly think the office of the Pope? Do you think the Pope is actually much like the President of the United States or any country? Do you honestly think that he is actually the first and final voice and everything, or do you think that the other the other offices have a lot more say in it as well.
So the Vatican Council has not made a lot of proclamations. They have not done a lot. Really, a lot of problems with the church is it's coming in a tone and messaging, and the Pope is speaking on a lot of things, and too many Catholics don't understand papal infallibility. It states that the Pope can make certain proclamations, infallibility because the Holy Spirit will guide him not to make a mistake in certain avenues. People take that and apply it to everything the Pope says as being infallible, which is not true. The Pope can be wrong, and popes have been wrong. And so the Pope will say something, people say, oh, that means that's what Catholics all believe. And even Catholics will go, that's what I gotta believe now. And they follow the Pope like he's Jesus. And it's like, that's not how that works. And it comes from a failure of Catholics not actually understanding their own teaching and just following the Pope like he's the only guy to listen to.
Well, I would go as far as to say it's also a failure of the Catholic Church itself in terms of by placing a man, even a symbol of a man in the presence of God, like it's basically saying that the Pope is the vicar of Christ and is the earthly connection between the earthly realm and Christ. That's from in my opinion, that's the first error, and everything else flows from that error. That with the Orthodoxy at least, you can have the Church Fathers, and they certainly command a lot of respect and have authority. At the same time, especially in the more Eastern, like Slavic style churches, people argue all the time with everyone. Like this, like no one has an agreement about anything, right? Like even like other church fathers within their systems are having arguments about certain things.
Yeah.
So that I like that element of it, where I always like the story of Jacob. When Jacob becomes Israel, and Israel meaning he who wrestles with God. I liked that story of the idea that man should be have a confrontational. It's like that conflict is always naturally arising, and that the only thing we should really be looking for is how to resolve conflict, and we can resolve conflict with God or with elements of God. It's one of the things that we've put out in the podcast about I call the methodology of grace, which is using forgiveness, mercy, and faith. It's three principles that are both gifts from God and also things that we can produce ourselves and extend to other people. And through those principles, we can start to produce grace in our time, grace in our lives. So, yeah, I think so. Going back to the Catholicism, it's that as soon as you start putting any moral person in the highest point of the hierarchy, and everything must flow from that, you're going to get weird shit. It's inevitable.
So, I think one of the things is I think you do need to have a person in a position of authority to make infallible declarations about such teaching. I think that's one of the downsides I think with Protestantism is that there is no. I don't know about Eastern Orthodox, know more about Protestantism. I'm just kind of like point to Protestantism. There is no real centralization of such teaching, and there's a lot of like offshoots, which has its advantages, but also has its disadvantages. Because a lot of people teaching really crazy things, and I think what's the benefit of Catholicism that we do allow, like for example, evolution. You can believe in evolution, you can believe in creation, you can believe in young Earth. The only requirement that church places on you is you have to believe that a God imbued a soul into the first human beings. And I think there's a bit that allows for a wider range of debate and topics, but I think having a person of soul, I think the church has only made 13 infallible declarations in its entire existence. Is that having someone in that authority to make that final say, okay, guys, you have to believe in the Trinity. You have to, there are certain things that are mandatory by faith, mandatory by the church. But I think there's value. I think that gets abused, but I think there is value in having that person in that position.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I can understand why they did it. Like, I'm not here to say that to go back in history and go but I get it, but at the same time, I'm like that is for me that is always the first mistake. Is that I can understand why you did the thing, but I also can see like from this point, all other mistakes will flow, and if no one's taking responsibility for that thing, because I mean at some point it's like how could you take responsibility for a 5 or 1,000-year-old or whatever it is problem, right? With the practical error issue of it snowballs to the point where it's like, well, who can say, right? Who can say who's at fault? I think that's exactly what they're trying to do with this COVID stuff. Just to pivot into more world events, by getting everyone's hands dirty and everyone getting everyone vaccinated to a certain degree, or having to lose their thing through not getting vaccinated, you're creating this this unholy coalition of shared guilt, where, well,
We're all
okay,
at fault. No one's
you
at
know,
fault.
yeah, no one's at fault because everyone's at fault. So who's to
Mhm.
say, right? And that's how they're going to cover this up. I think
Yeah,
that's how it's going to.
honestly, you're in Australia. How you doing? You're in Australia. I'm reading the news. You guys got some like heavy like mask fines and zero stuff going on. You doing okay?
I'm in Western Australia.
Ah, so you're pretty much
I'm
like
where
safe.
I'm where I'm where all the mines are. So up
Mm.
until recently, I think iron ore basically saved our asses. But we had zero cases here. They've had zero cases here pretty much since the start. They had a few people. Sorry, they had a few people on a boat at the very start, and then they had a few little scares through hotel quarantine. But they shut down the border. So if you look at Western Australian map, there's like a big giant desert kind of in the middle of the country, and then so Western Australia is kind of on the farthest west coast. Perth is just one little city right by the Indian Ocean. I'm south of that, so like we're in the middle of really nowhere. we're where the west where the west begins and ends, kind of thing. So to even get here is a bit of a pain in the ass, and with normal transport open. So when they shut the borders, they just kind of effectively sealed us off. So they're pushing vaccines now, but hopefully we should be open in a few months, and then we'll see what happens. But I think what's kind of saved us here a little bit too is that we've been able to see how everyone else is doing things, and then slowly change our reaction to that. So I just keep hoping that people will eventually snap out of this, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
Probably not. Probably not in this decade.
Yeah. No, I think COVID. Like what sucks. Not only is COVID here to stay, which we kind of all said accept already. The fact that the COVID policy and like this is the like 9/11 lasted for a long time in politics in America, and it's still talked about and brought up. Not the COVID is that thing for everyone now. In 5 years they're gonna be worrying about COVID numbers. When someone runs for president in 12 years, someone runs for president, they're gonna say, "Well, but when I was a younger staffer in some office, I suggested this strategy. I would have solved COVID, but no one listened to me." Like, that's gonna be sad.
Yeah,
It's gonna it's gonna be so frustrating and stupid.
Hey man, Building 7. I use Building 7 as a shorthand now. Just like Building 7, Building 7. Like,
Oh,
I remember 9/11. I was living in Paris, and we got someone was telling us about it. We ran to watch the feed, and I was sitting with a bunch of Americans who are all expats who were like literally the day before we'd been talking. They would have been Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn, card
mhm.
carrying, like all that kind of stuff. Blame America for everything. And then so the second tower just went down, and they were already saying like, oh, we know who the people were, and passport in the rubble, that kind of shit. And I just turned to the people at the table and like, this feels a little fast. Like
Mhm.
it feels like they have. Like, I'm not saying that, I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm saying that this feels hokey, right? And
Yeah.
I remember them all turning on me, like, "How dare you? How dare you to say that America would do this to their own people?" Like, motherfucker, the Bay of Tonkin, man. Like,
I mean,
what the?
come on.
But it's amazing to me because I found out that day that scratch an America a little bit. There's a patriot underneath every single American somewhere down
Yeah.
there. It's like how
What
many
is
how many licks to get to the Tootsie Roll.
I wish that was
Uh,
like my problem was I wish the patriotism they actually show was like 1776 patriotism and not 2012 bootlicking patriotism.
yeah,
That's all it
yeah.
took was a little bit of scratching to get down to like that. Let's just kill some tyrants. We'd be better off. But it's like moment the scratch comes, like well we got to fall back to daddy government, and it's like fuck.
Yeah.
It I guess I still like I've dropped all American patriotism pretty much. Like I still would love my American history, but at this point in time, I have an American flag behind my bookshelf. I'm probably gonna take it down and put up a Florida flag. Like I care more about my state pride now than I care about the rest of the country.
Yeah,
It's
that's still American patriotism to its degree, because I mean Florida is just connected to America. Like
sadly.
it's kind of what I've always said about when people say about the national divorce and balkanization of America. I'm like, I don't see that happening, only because, or if it does happen, it'll be very interesting. It'll be very, very
Mhm.
different than the balkanization. What people kind of forget about the Soviet Union breakup and let's say Yugoslavia and a few others, is that these countries, like those countries, were created out of other countries that had existed for a long time. Like in
Mhm.
some cases, they were these countries used to be kingdoms. Like Poland and Lithuania were a heavy hitting civilization for a long time. Um, so they had a history to pull upon. They had a cultural history of being a country. Uh, in America, you don't Texas and Florida have never not been Texas and Florida in America in American states. Before they were, I mean, whatever. No one alive has any recollection of that, so it doesn't really matter. There's
Yeah.
no cultural history of the early settlements of Texas or Florida. So
Well, what was
to break it,
Florida's really different. The town I live in and the county I live in was all founded by Confederates. And so the people here who wave Confederate flags aren't waving it for, like, there's two kinds of people who wave Confederate flags in America. There are the racists who wave it, the people who know their history and actually like it, those who actually have cultural roots to it. And in my county, people who wave the Confederate flag are waving the flag of the founders of their county. And so there is a little bit of local history and state pride. But you're right. Other states, like cities, have that. The state does not have that. And so it's interesting to
right.
see that kind of dynamic play out.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I don't know the whole DeSantis blah 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 stuff. I'm really trying to stay out of American politics because I'm so detached from it now.
Yeah.
One of the good things about being an expat in a country, I was saying this to a coworker yesterday, is that I'm so disassociated from results now. Like
Mm.
I'm more like things are
Took
happening,
that
and
clear pill. You took the clear pill.
yeah.
Clear pill.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, Yarvin did talk about this, and it was something that happened in the Soviet Union as well, and kind of what I think led to the collapse of the Soviet Union more than anything was
Mm.
just being just sort of a disassociatedness to the society in general. Like I look at just the West and the Western civilization, and I'm just very detached from now.
Mm.
Because I see what they're doing, and I've talked my bloody face off trying to warn people about what's happening, and they keep coming back to me, looking at me either like a dog with magic tricks, or that I'm like, or they start calling me names or something like that. So I'm like, you know what, cool. Tell you what, I'm gonna sit over here. I'm gonna learn my archery. I'm gonna go do my gonna get my fishing tackle nice and figured out. I'm gonna grow my garden. I'm gonna get all my stuff get all my stuff ready and get the stuff for my daughter ready. And when I and what ha- and when what happens, that I know is going to start happening starts happening, then I can just be like, I won't even tell you I told you so. It'll be more like, cool, yeah, yeah, yeah. But you tell me how this is gonna how the politician is gonna save you while they're getting on the helicopters and leaving town
Yeah.
and leaving you to fend for yourself with no food, motherfucker. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And just let's see how this one plays out.
Yeah.
So
There is something to that kind of attitude that I adopted that attitude when I started becoming an anarchist and reading people like that kind of stuff. Like this, it used to be someone would tell me the political opinion. Like my cousins and family are all hardcore left wing, environmentalist, gun grabbing types. And I was like, me and my grandpa are like the only conservative people there. And he doesn't argue with them because it's his grandkids. But me, I'm the youngest, and so I'll still do it. And now it's got to the point where I see them, and they'll be like, "We're gonna take off. You shouldn't have a gun. We're gonna take your guns." I'm like, "It's cool that you think that. Send bachelors, have fun." I don't engage anymore. Like send bachelors. I'm fucking bring it. I'm not engaged
yeah.
anymore. Not,
No, because what I became aware of too is that you're having all these conversations, and it's just that vainglory aspect that can overtake the mind, where you think you're having this big giant conversation on Twitter or Facebook or something like that, and you're going to change the world. God damn it! Like if I can convince you that I'm right, that'll cause a cascade system error, and we're going to turn this thing around and blah, blah. It's like, get the message out there. We're sending the message. Like, dude, no one's listening. No one
Yeah.
gives a shit. Even if they hear you, what are they going to do? You're not
Yeah.
giving them anything that's practical. It's the and then what ism, right? Like, I even felt this even with a New Atheist when I was still very much a part of it. And Sam Harris had a presentation, and he brought this up where he's like, atheism or New Atheism suffers from an actionable problem. Where what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to produce some things? Whereas the church, the faithful have that advantage. But I would even say that, with any ideology or methodology out there, it's like you've got to be able to produce something and show your works. Otherwise, it's like, what are we doing here? Like,
faith
okay.
without works is dead. Is that the scripture? I cannot remember any scripture for life of me.
No, I read my Bible a few times over the last few years, but from an atheist standpoint, more to like ridicule it or look at things and go, ha, it's amazing to me, right? Because I've said this on Twitter a few times now with the whole Abraham thing. Like, I remember Chris Hitchens and a few others making fun of the Abraham story, or bringing it up as a sign that God is evil. That if you believe in this kind of God, what kind of God would make you want to sacrifice your child? And of course, leaving out the whole like, but you didn't sacrifice your kid. He gave him a ram instead. And that's blah 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 blah. And now you have people lining up to get their 12-year-old kids injected with this stuff that we know is landing at least a percentage of 12 to 15-year-old boys in the hospital with heart conditions. Like, and I've had conversations with people, which the most frustrating thing in the world is that they're like, well, how many? I'm like, whoa, hang on a second. If some kids got sick from spinach at your local supermarket tomorrow, they would recall all.
He's froze. Did we
You're
lose
there?
him?
Nope.
You're back.
You're back.
And he's back. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
I think we're good.
Yeah. So if there was a threat of E. coli or something like that, they would shut down. They would recall the spinach without question, right? Like lead poisoning in some of that. Oh, they would get rid of all the toys, right? It's like you would. There would be no debate. There'd be like, if two kids got sick in Missouri, they would take all the spinach off in Florida. Like it would just be automatic. And now kids are getting heart conditions, like permanent heart conditions.
Yeah.
That Pfizer just so happens has pills to deal with. It's like, and no one's putting that together, and they're sacrificing their children willingly.
Literally sacrificing their children on the altar of government to Moloch.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't people make fun of Abraham. So that's a good point. Like, the New Atheist, like seeing Sam Harris. I actually he's my favorite New Atheist. He's the only one I could listen to. And I read his book, The Moral Landscape. Pretty good book. I'm a fan of that one. I think he's great. Seeing his downfall during the whole Trump stuff and the COVID stuff has been sad as hell. Because he's like a really smart intellectual. And now it's just like,
I thought it was liberating. Actually. Sorry, go ahead.
So, go ahead. How is it liberating? Exactly.
Because it proved a point that I have been thinking and dancing around from 2014, which is what the world doesn't need. What the world doesn't need right now is more academics. And just because you have a lot of degrees, and by every metric under the sun, you are a brilliant genius individual, PhDs and laureates and blah 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 at the wazoo, you're still susceptible to the same bullshit. I mean, Thomas, forget the name of the book. I forget the name of the. Thomas Sowell brought this out with one of his books, basically saying that intellectuals, once they're smart in one area, they suffer from this delusion that they're smart in all areas.
Oh yes,
and it's one that's impossible, because we're all incompetent in most things. And even if you are slightly competent in something, you have to realize there's like how incompetent you are compared to masters of something.
Tom
But
Wood
that's
said
what's
it
wrong with
best. Tom Wood
good.
said it best. These people, he said, these people, they think, well, I can build a computer when I'm 4, therefore I can build a perfect society. It's like
Yeah,
that's their ideology. That's how they think. There's
yeah,
so many
that's an
people.
engineering
I have a
problem,
lot of
right?
friends who are really smart engineering types. Because one of the best engineering schools, Polytech, is in my county, and so I have a lot of friends who are like really smart engineers, and they all think, "Look, I could write code, and I'm a fucking genius when it comes to building robots. It must transfer over to religion and philosophy and everything else." And just say the dumbest shit you ever heard, like it's the most profound idea, and I'll prove it wrong in 5 minutes, and they'll just ignore me, like, "What are you just only talking about?" It's like, this is what I do for fun. You're hopping into my realm, it's like thinking you're all that, and you know nothing, and
Yeah.
it's aggravating as shit.
Well, no, absolutely. I think the way to get through that is realizing that practical intelligence is really the only thing that really is going to matter very soon. It's
Mm,
how I think it's how things like guys like Marcuse and a few others have been able to take over the academic space so easily. Is that their disconnect from reality, like and I mean like a lived natural order
mm,
reality, is so profound that when you start to see how disconnected they are, you realize like, okay, it's yes, you're smarter than me. Like you have more degrees than me. You know much more about this topic than me, but you're useless in a firefight. You're useless
mm,
when the lights go out. You're useless if the supermarket closes down. You're fucked. You know what are you gonna do? Like, you can't fix your car. You can't do all these critical things that you can't do. Or and I'm talking to myself as well.
mm.
2020 was a big wake up call in terms of vulnerability, like, and I realized just how vulnerable I was in so many different ways, and I'm still 100 times more capable than your average than probably Sam Harris is, and when it comes down to like managing, being able to grow food
Mm.
or or make alcohol. Really, now that's I'm learning that now, but uh, you
Nice.
know, yeah, it's great that these people are wicked smart, and it's in peacetime. It's wonderful, but
Mhm.
we're heading into a wartime scenario.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's
Yeah,
that's
there's
learn how
definitely
to grow
something.
some food.
Yeah, there's definitely something about this. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. 'Cause I went to a Halloween party. We're talking about the 20th century. I said the 20th century was a mistake, and all the technological advancements are also a mistake. 'Cause I've been reading Ted Kaczynski, and so I'm kind of going on this whole Luddite kick pretty much. And
Yeah, yeah.
he was saying like, but no, you understand the efficiency of all of this now. We don't have to like spend all day growing our own food and stuff. I'm like, Logan, like you don't get this. Like people's codes is what is stored in the process, and economic efficiency is not all that matters. GDP cannot be your bottom line, and he agreed with me in the end. But it's these people, they look at one aspect of a metric of how he does things, and they just say, well, this one metric is good, therefore all of us must also grow with it, and they don't. There's a disconnect there.
Well, I think it's also same thing with liberty. Um, so I tweeted out recently um, that liberty is basically a lie. That it's that what was that? How do I put it? Uh, liberty and freedom are not synonymous. God can grant you freedom through servitude, but liberty. But you're never you can never have liberty from God. Like there's always, if you look at God or the prince of this world as the two forces that you're going to have to serve somebody. Uh, Now you might think that the state the state is in comparison is the mini boss compared to either God or the prince of
Yeah.
this world. So when you choose who you're going to serve, then you know who you're going to fight, and you're never free. Like you're not free from those things. You can have freedom under those things or freedom within those contexts. So even the state, like I don't sweat the state
Yeah.
because uh, it's so mutable. I've watched it change. The nice thing about being in your mid 40s uh, is that you have enough history, personal history, that you don't have to look up or be confused about. It's like, like I remember being 20, so pretty fairly clearly. There's my 30s were got a little murky, but like my 20s are pretty clear, and so I can track political things. I remember what they were saying 20 years ago, and how this was supposed to fix this thing, and now 20 years later, like it's still broken. It's actually it's worse. So I know your theories are bullshit, and I remember when it was like the conservatives saying it, or the liberals saying it, or this side saying it, or that side saying it, and it's all bullshit. So I don't sweat the state. It's more like fuck it, man. Like
Yeah.
whatever you want. What do you need? What do you want? Like, yeah, you want more taxes? Here, take whatever. Like, fine, fuck off. I'll just make more money. But it's I'm more concerned about the state of my soul now than the state of the economy.
And that's a good way of looking at it. I'm how do I put this? I'm young, and I worry about. I care about the state more than I should, because I'm worried about the job market that I'm going to be going into. Like I don't have. I'm young. I haven't amassed enough skills to actually be of value anywhere. Besides, I'm skilled in one area, and that job is going away. And so I worry about the government restoring the economy. That's going to push people to robots and machines for low labor work, and the school and colleges are being harder and harder, and more crazy woke stuff and hard to get in. And so I am worried about what am I going to do? With like so many things I need to look. I'm looking to figure. Like I'm looking at jobs now for the future. It's like I was going to go to school and do this. I'm like, that job's not going to exist in 20 years. How about this one? Why might not exist in 10? Trying to figure out where to go. And the government makes it like Misa said, the government makes it impossible for the mass to be able to plan anything. And it's getting harder and harder to kind of plan for the future when you don't know if you're going to even be allowed to leave your house. And that's a gunpoint in 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's I was having a conversation, I think it was with Mike Paul from Paul's on the Wall podcast. And he was mentioning that it's kind of like a chess game where you're kind of moving especially with your kids, you're trying to move your kids around. Like, I mean, I moved my family from Montreal to here in Australia, not to really to avoid COVID or lockdowns or whatever the state or whatever, but my wife has a bigger family and a younger family, and they're all here. So I realized that family as a resource would be much more beneficial for my daughter, no matter what their political leanings are or whatever have you. She has the resource of family here, where in Montreal, my family was down to like basically 2 core members, and they're getting pretty old. So, and I have friends out there, but it's different. It's you with kids, you kind of need that external family. It's part of their narrative, it's part of who they are. So I mean, that's a really dramatically huge move, but it's a move. So yeah, I feel for you. Like, I feel for people who are coming up at this time period. For me, I'm looking at everything as I'm treating myself as a business now. I look at my life as a business. So all the money that I'm making I have a day job, but all the money that I'm making just kind of is going in and being reused in some ways. So it's not about savings anymore. It's about investments. It's not about looking at 20 years. I'm not looking at a job for 20 years from now. I'm looking at what skills can I learn from now to build my own thing, to be able to do my own side hustle. And if my side hustle is good, build that out. Right. Like, learning how to distill alcohol, man, not a bad idea.
I've thought about it.
It's a good skill. You can make a still pretty easily, and like, it's always going to be in demand. Like, it's not all you really need is some water and time. Water and time and some wheat. So it's that could be a.
I thought about it. I've looked into it. It honestly looks like fun. I like exotic, like weird booze, and so like making my own and throwing to the party with something you made does sound like a lot of fun. But the skill of it does sound of value, but I'm still living at home. My parents are the Protestants who hate alcohol, and so I can't really get this to make it or even buy it. So I need to, once I get my own place, I plan to get into that hobby. But
yeah. Well, no, as I said, don't make it a hobby. Make it. I'm not saying that has to be your path, but find the thing that you're interested in that is also value, like that you think is going to have value no matter what. Booze
Mhm.
is a good one. Vices are good ones, but
Yeah.
but um there's less. I think Bitcoin and a few other things out there are worthy
Mm.
ideas. Copywriting through Jason Stapleton. There's lots of different things you can go and I think gain those skills
Mm.
uh, and start to have lots of different things you can scaffold off of. Because I think that's the move. Is that if you try to get into one standard job anymore,
Yeah.
those days are done. Like
Yeah.
I don't think that's you're going to have a ability to move around a lot, and then supplement. So supplement yourself with your garden, supplement yourself with with a Bitcoin investment scheme or something like
Yeah.
that. I think that might be the future. So, but
It's hard. It's hard to tell, and I said I'm at a job I currently hate. And I said, but at the end of it, I'm quitting the job and doing the next thing, and I still don't know what that next thing is yet. And so I put a timer on myself to figure it out. I'm like 2 months left now to figure out, okay, what is it? Right now, it's just going to be getting my AA, but it might after that I got really no clue. But
yeah,
trying to, yeah, this is why I really want to make Florida. Like this is why I'm working the paleo stuff, working local level. I'm glad like so best in Florida, popular Liberty's coming to Florida and doing things. Like I'm glad Florida looks like it's going to be safer than the rest of the country, the rest of the world. Which is thankful. I'm glad for that. But I need to figure out how I can help them out in some way or benefit from what they're doing and make myself more secure.
yeah. No, that's it. And I mean, doing something in the political realm is not something that's outside the realm of possibility for you as well, right? So,
No, I mean, I'm meeting with my city council in a few weeks. There's a law in Baltimore on Sunday. You cannot buy liquor and you cannot buy booze or wine or beer until after 12 o'clock. It's an old pre-prohibition law. I'm getting
yeah.
it repealed. I'm talking to the mayor and the city council like next week. That law
Free the
pisses me off.
booze.
Yeah, pretty
Free the
much.
booze.
Free the booze. So I'm
It's
gonna.
a dumb rule.
It's so outdated. It's so outdated. I'm
Yeah.
gonna, but I've been talking to local businesses. I've seriously considered running for mayor. I could spend 2 years campaigning and I hit 25. Run for what? And my mayor is so
Do it.
incompetent, be easy.
Do it. Do it.
And my church is all people.
Yeah, I mean, do that, or getting on the city council. Period wouldn't be a bad idea either.
Yeah.
Start from there and building some experience. But and then hey, as we all know, governments get paid quite well. I mean, it's the sovereign makes the exception. So apparently, like that's what's happening here in Western Australia. Is they're mandating people to get vaccinated. They're going to start finding businesses who have employees who aren't vaccinated. And but but anyone who's in the government is given exemptions because of legalism. You're like, it's not about public health and safety, my friends. It's not about it. I don't know how many times you got to be provided examples that this is not part of.
There was a city commissioner, and I can't remember what city it was, but he straight up said, "We know masks aren't good for children, but it's about setting the tone of doing what's best for your neighbor." And it's like we all know this, but they don't even hide it anymore, which is something I always thought in my life they're always gonna hide it. I'm gonna have to like show the hidden meanings. No, I can just quote these bastards now, and my friends are like, "Yeah, that's just how it is." I'm like, that shouldn't be how it is, but okay. The people who don't care about politics are more clear-pilled than those who claim to be clear-pilled because they actually don't exist in the realm.
What's amazing to me is the parents, right? Because you always get this. I never wanted to be the guy who says people are bad parents or good parents, that kind of thing, because everyone has their own ways of raising kids. But I've now become convinced that some people they only have children because they're socially expected to have children.
Mm.
Like that's kind of what their class does. They have the 2 kids, they have the house, they da 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 da. But they aren't interested in being parents because, and I'll tell you, like the moment my daughter was born, my wife went through a really long labor, and we had the labor, and they bring us to the little room in the back to first. It was 24 hours waiting period, and I looked at my daughter, and I was filled obviously with love, but also with this insane biological reaction where I realized I was checking out my 6s and 12s, man. Like I was just checking out my corners because I'm looking for threats, and I'm like, biologically moving to defend her, right? Like
Mm.
just hyper aware of things. It was another time I was pushing her in a car, pushing her in a cart, and this car had a kind of a rolling stop towards us, and I looked at the car, and I kind of put myself, you know, I felt my body kind of moving to protect the carriage. And I realized, like, oh shit, I could overturn that car with my bare hands right now. Like, it's like if it came too close to my child. So I tell you all that, and not to say that I'm the world's greatest dad, but those are things that are not logical. Like they're not. There's
Mm.
nothing logical about those reactions. It's just complete instinctual reaction. And to see people feeding their kids to this machine and letting them get sick when you know that's a possibility, even a
Yeah.
1% possibility, it would never happen with my
Yeah.
child. Like you would literally have to kill me. You're gonna have to kill me to do that. Like
Yeah.
I will stand in front of you and bear you down. Like you can inject me with whatever the hell you want, man. Like render unto Caesar what is his. Fuck it. But like I've made my peace with God. But
Mm.
with my child, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have to you're gonna have to come with guns
Sin
and do your
battles.
work. Yeah, exactly,
I'm
exactly.
putting down
So
anyone listening, I'm putting sin battles on a bumper sticker and selling them for $5 a pop. If you want one, DM me.
you should, man. Go to the new Caleb Brown merch store.
Well, I have a few items I sell, but I need to get. I haven't had time to work on a website yet. I sell hoodies, t-shirts. My favorite. I sell t-shirts. Picture of John Wilkes Booth, and it says "I love the Steeler." And so if anyone wants these t-shirts, just DM me. I have loads of options. I was making all the orders and stuff, and then the guy I ordered from, his website went down because like shipping problems, and so I haven't been able to get anything new to actually make anything yet. And so I gotta find a local guy and not have to go through the internet.
Shipping problems is sort of the word of the day these days. It's like along with sustainability is just shipping problems.
It's well, we've gone for about an hour. I only have one more question, really.
Yep. Yep.
When you were a new atheist, who was your favorite new atheist to listen to or read? Because for me,
Hitchens,
I was never an atheist.
Hitchens.
Hitchens, really? I could never get into
Yeah.
Hitchens. I don't know what it was.
Hitchens was my boy. He still is to a certain degree. You know, one thing I liked about Hitchens, and I still respect about Hitchens, is I think he actually had a very principled position. One thing that became very clear on him, because to watch him, you know, during the first Iraq War, he was against the invasion, or against the invasion of Kuwait, but he was criticizing the American position. But during the Second World War, the Second Iraq War, he was for the invasion of Iraq and the ousting of Saddam Hussein, because he basically had seen what Saddam Hussein was doing and saying, like, yeah, no, we can't have this guy in power anymore. He's got to go. He was principally against dictatorships of all kinds and totalitarianism. So, you know, I think right now he spoke out against the Clintons. He spoke against Mother Teresa. He spoke against Saddam Hussein. He spoke against the leaders of North Korea. So there was a consistency with Hitchens that I think that even had he been alive during the Trump era, I don't think he could possibly have been pro-Trump, but I bet you him and Harris would have had a falling out, because I think Hitchens would have been more like, okay, look, wait, let's. It's not that bad, guys. Like, it's bad, but it's not like as bad as you're saying. Like, he's not. Yeah. I think Sam was so unhinged. It was embarrassing.
Yeah. Oh, it's honestly sad, because the Moral Landscape is one of my favorite philosophy books. He relates objective morality from science, and I think it's a fucking phenomenal book. I love it. And just to see him go down this COVID trail was like, and the Trump stuff. I used to listen to this podcast. I can't even tolerate it anymore. It's so it's so cringe. Anyway, yeah, I never really could get into Hitchens. I don't know what it was. For me, it was always like when I watched The Atheist, it was Sam Harris. That was my guy. Because I think Dawkins, I didn't care for. Bennett, I didn't really know who it was. But Hitchens, I watched Hitchens, but for me, all I could see was sophistry. He seemed just to mock people. I never really watched him seriously engage with him. My answer debate was William Lane Craig, which he did try to engage in, which was nice.
Oh yeah, but he also, if you look back to that, and I always I thought this even back then, was that they weren't sending the apologists weren't sending them the. I mean, maybe that's the whole problem is that William Lane Craig was their best and brightest, and it's like Jesus Christ, dude! Like you need to get some. You need to get some better hitters. Like it's unfortunate that there wasn't like Jay Dreyer wasn't around at that point. It's unfortunate that it wasn't like Jonathan Pajot talking to him or
there's some great apologists nowadays, like
or great representatives. Yeah, exactly.
There are some really intellectual powerhouses now who have been that brought them up to there's a debate between Trent Horn and the Cosmic Skeptic. Have you seen this debate?
Okay. But I'll be interested in checking it out. Yeah.
Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic, is my favorite atheist currently. I watch him every day I can. He's fantastic. And Trent Horn's probably my favorite apologist. So their debate is like 2 hours of just peak philosophy. And I think I've watched it 3 times now. I can't recommend it enough. It is really good.
Yeah. I mean, I think the conversation can always be ongoing. And I think that's, what we want to do with the post-secular is kind of idea is that, I think for a lot of people to move back into a religious framework, just like a classical traditional religious framework, there's just too much baggage there, or they've talked too much shit about it that it's going to become too awkward for them to sheepishly come back and become Catholics or probably whatever again. And I'm hesitant to really maybe get into the whole actually building a new ministry, but I think that's kind of what is almost required now, is to create a system that isn't some sort of Unitarian bullshit or ultra Calvinism kind of disguised as something else, and build something that people can inhabit. The daughter is up and at him. We got to wrap this up, but to build something that can be inclusive and still have that inner conflict of discussion, like not conflict in terms of some sort of violent repression, but like let's talk it out, let's hash it out, let's see how these ideas can stack up against each other. So, all right, brother, I gotta go.
Yeah, give you plugs real quick, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, come check out 2-Bit Podcast. We're on YouTube. We're on most audio podcast stuff. I've been lax on getting us on Rumble, but we'll be on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute at some point. Nice. But yeah, check us out on YouTube for now. Shows go up every Friday. I think it's on for. I'm trying to do the math here. I think it's every Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That should be the standard. Pretty
Wonderful.
Sure. Again, I'm 12 hours ahead, so I kind of just I put things up and I go, I think that's right. So it's probably every Friday at 8 a.m. So
wonderful. Well, guys, another episode of Faith, Liberty, and Praxis. Go read more books.
Cheers, Caleb. Thanks.